One of the main issues here then, number 3, is how to deal with criticism. How to undertake criticism and how to deal with criticism. Because clearly if you want to improve someone, there's going to have to be some criticism. Positive criticism, not negative criticism. We're all human beings and we are all flawed. And we will inevitably make some mistakes. Every one of us. Even after 20 years of marriage, you'll make a mistake because we're human beings, we make mistakes all the time. That's why nobody's perfect and both should be willing to accept criticism from the other. But they just have to learn to constructively criticize in an appropriate manner. If somebody is arrogant and they cannot take criticism, or if you're too shy to speak your mind and you end up bottling all of your bitterness and resentment inside, then this is going to be a recipe for disaster, because you can't bottle it up forever. It's going to explode one day. Bottling up is different from tolerating and dealing with something. You can't go and criticize everything that happens. You can't tell somebody off for every little thing that happens. You have to pick your battles. But you can't always never say anything and bottle it up until it becomes make you angry, and then one day you'll just say it in a way that's just going to destroy the whole thing. That's why criticism is very important in every relationship, but it needs to be just constructive, not negative and contentious. Negative criticism hardly ever works, right? The Prophet ﷺ used positive criticism, right? For example, when Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ just mentioned to Hafsa radiyallahu anha, who is the daughter of Umar, sister of Abdullah ibn Umar. So he said that, what an excellent man Abdullah is. Like, your brother is such an excellent man. If only he could perform the extra tahajjud prayer at night. So instead of going to him and saying, why don't you do tahajjud prayer at night? He said, oh, it'd be such a wonderful thing if he could even do that, right? So after that, Abdullah, that really hit him, and he would sleep very little at night, and he would pray. So anyway, the next point then is that you have to learn to pick your battles. Right? You can't pick every battle. You can't fight for everything. It can't be 100% perfect. If you're looking for 100% perfection, just know you will never get it, because you yourself aren't even 100% perfect. You know what I mean? There's nobody perfect. There has to be a give and take. You have to learn to pick your battles, right? And obviously, this leads to the whole concept of nagging, in inverted commas, nagging. When you want to pick every battle, it means nagging. Nagging would means that goes on and on and on. What the other person does then, they dislike it, and then they learn to close their ears to it. They don't like it, but they learn to close their ears to it, so it's not being effective. That's why you can't always nag somebody about everything. They always put up a wall then. That's just human reaction to something. That's how they deal with it. So the other thing you have to remember is that it's virtually impossible to completely change another person. Virtually impossible to change another person. You can't have them 100% the way you'd like them to be. You know, before you get married, you have this maybe ideal spouse. This is how I want them to be. It never happens that way. But you can be satisfied with what you have. Allah can make you satisfied with what you have. That's the important part here. The other thing then is, when your spouse does criticize you or make a mistake, which is bound to happen, we have to develop the humility to be able to accept the mistake and apologize. That's so important. You gain more respect when you apologize. You don't lose it. Some people have a psychological complex that if they apologize, they feel they're going to drop themselves. Even if 10 people tell them you were wrong, I've dealt with a case where the one spouse was told that they were wrong by several people that got involved and heard the story both from his and her perspective. And the several people that got involved, except maybe that spouse's very close friends. Because some spouses' very close friends are as blind as they are. They are the biggest trouble. They cause the biggest problems. They're not your best advisors. But anybody else neutral, whether you asked them or whether the husband asked them or the wife asked them, they told them that they were wrong. What that spouse did was that she or he cut off those people. because they weren't talking in their favor, they cut them off. That is just shows some kind of psychological complex. That means they need some kind of psychological help. You gain more respect when you apologize. You don't lose it because say no, he can apologize. It shows your vulnerability. It shows that you're an easier person to deal with. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said that I guarantee a house at the edge of paradise for the one who gives up arguing even if they're right. To avoid the argument, even if they're right, they give up the argument. I give you a house at the edge of paradise. And a house in the middle of paradise for one who abandons lying even when joking. And a house in the highest part of paradise for one who is beautiful in their conduct, who deals with it in the best of ways. They're going to get the highest place. And so don't think that if you apologize to diffuse the situation and to make amends that it's going to be wasted. No, you're going to get things for it. To succeed in marriage, you must learn humility. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the one who initiates the greeting is free of pride. So you know when you have a little problem with somebody and you feel bad with each other, right? And then it's like he must apologize, she must apologize first. She must try to rectify first because it was her problem or his problem. The Prophet ﷺ is saying that the one who gives the salam first to try to reconcile, they're the best of the people. They're free of pride. And this has happened several occasions. I felt I was right. And I was like, no, this time I'm going to make sure that she comes to me and not me. And then when you read this hadith, when you remember this hadith, you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to get some reward for this. Let me do this. That's why these hadiths really help. You should have them on your phone somewhere. Every time you have a conflict, read the hadith. Unless you're so angry, no, I don't want to read them. She has to apologize. He has to apologize. But another point I want to mention quickly is that do not hold grudges. You can't afford to hold grudges with husband and wife. They become too heavy eventually. And they mess up your relationship. Some wives have a habit of holding on to small issues, keeping them bottled up inside and allowing them to fester. There's going to be issues. You just have to nip them in the bud. You have to deal with them straight away and move on. Holding on to past issues will not make you feel any better. And your husband will not even be able to see how they are upsetting you. Like sometimes the husband may do something or the wife may do something and it upsets you. But they don't know. They didn't do it on purpose. You held that inside. They don't know. What's the point? You see what I'm saying? There's no point. It's very biased and unfair. Like for example, right? A husband may have had his dinner and he forgot to clear up the plate. Now, because of the months and months of bottling up small issues, this day when he came home and he was really tired or weird or he just thinks he doesn't have to clean up the plate, right? Because some husbands think like that they don't have to clean up the plate, right? They don't have to pick it up. He can come, he can eat and walk away, and then there's servants, the wife is a servant. They think like that, they don't even help. But this guy, he was maybe in a busy or whatever, so he didn't pick up the plate. And then she just burst out. I said, you never pick up the plate, and in all the previous months, you don't even put the rubbish out, you don't do this, and you don't do that. Why didn't you mention these important points before, except you do it only when you're angry? Because when you're angry, you can't do it tactfully. You will then do it in anger, and then it will just, maybe he'll start responding, and then it doesn't work. Finally, when it comes to communication, it's important to be on the same wavelength with your spouse. You have to be on the same wavelength. Now, this can initially be difficult when you first get married because you're both coming from different wavelengths, different kind of perspectives. You have to learn to get to know each other and balance it out. If he's the harsh one, she's the soft one, then his harshness has to be tempered down by her softness. And her over softness needs to be raised by his efforts. But once you get to know each other, you have to learn to mature with one another. Especially when it comes to the issue of raising children. If you're on different wavelengths, you will have great difficulty in bringing up your children, because then your children will know and they will play the spouses with one another. They know their mother always lets them do it. and the father doesn't, or they know their father doesn't lets them do it and the mother doesn't, they're going to be playing you. And you're going to get angry with one another, and your children are going to know this. That is one of the worst things that you can do. You have to be on the same wavelength.